Hello there, and welcome to Sweet Child of Time. I'm your host, Steve Barnes. Today, we're recapping the very last episode of Dark. It's season 3, episode 8, called The Paradise. I think. I don't know. They, I saw a translation that just said Paradise, but I think it's The Paradise. I'll see what my co-host thinks. She's the one who we are thankful that she's here to provide the recap for us. It is complete, and she's with me. She is your host of one of my stories. It's Lindsay Dunn. Ahoy there, Lindsay.
Ahoy, Steve. And yes, I'm co-signing on this The Paradise business.
Okay.
That's what we have to do. I mean, that's what I was told. That's Claudia told me. And I do whatever Claudia tells me.
I usually write down whatever words I see on the screen. So like that's where I'm getting my information from. It's like straight from the show itself. So that's what it said.
Yep.
But yeah, the last one, Lindsay. Adam might walk in here any second now and say the circle is now complete. I hope he doesn't, because that was lame when he did.
Or he might say, your journey is just beginning. I have a mission for you.
I need you to take that child that Hannah has in her belly at the end and take him on a journey.
Yeah, but it's been a ride, Steve. I mean, I can't believe here we are at the end or the beginning or whatever we want to call this, but
I know. I mean, I can believe that we watched it, but I can't believe that we've been recapping it and talking about it and fielding feedback, and it's been really fun doing this. And yeah, I'm kind of bittersweet. Um, whenever you're watching a show, you're always waiting for the conclusion, waiting for the end. It's like, oh boy, the last episode, it's here. And then when it's done, it's done. And we haven't finished this episode yet. We're just beginning, but yeah, we've seen this journey to the end. We haven't let any of your your folks down. Over on your blog. You get a lot of comments, and I've seen a lot of comments, especially after season 2, like, "Hey, when you going to finish? You ever going to do this thing?" And now you can finally put it back in their face.
I know, but that the problem is now I probably won't get any more comments ever again on anything because this is the only thing I ever get comments about. So that's kind of upsetting because it was like, when are you going to do season 3? And, they asked me that 2 years ago and I was like, I'll work on it. I thought I would finish that year, but it didn't happen. And here it is 3 years later. Maybe it's 33 years. Who knows? But it's 3 years and I'm finished. I'm finished with the written recaps, and today I'll do we'll do this recap of this episode, the final episode, but
Hmm.
honestly, we could probably talk about Dark forever, and maybe we'll talk about Dark at least once more, maybe next week, who knows? I don't think we've just solidified that, Steve, but I feel like there is more content we could create from this thing if we wanted to.
Oh no, absolutely. It's definitely there for the taking. Like I, just your recaps alone, like that's something another comment I wanted to make is you have left your mark, like with your written recaps on the web, and of course the podcast as well. But I think people are more apt to like look at like a written recap such as you provided. So you'll still be getting comments on this years and years down the road because this show hasn't been topped yet as like one of the best shows ever. So people are
Mhm.
still going to be looking for recaps. And what we're doing right here is we're leaving our stamp on time. Some character in this show at some point in this episode was like, does anything ever matter? Or do we leave anything behind? Yes, Lindsay, you and I have left something behind.
Yeah, and I think I've done it, Steve. I used the golden snitch and I broke through the barrier. So one of my recaps, the one from season 1 episode 1, is on that
Hmm.
front page of Google. If you put dark recaps,
Hmm.
I'm dominating there. So somehow I went through the loop and I used the loophole and I'm on top. So
And
I
even
don't know how
our
that happened.
even these podcasts, like the my top 10 podcasts of Sweet Child of Time, have always been like the 10 episodes of 1899. But that's changed like in the past few weeks because so many people have listened to our season 1 episode 1 recap that that episode is now like my seventh most popular episode of the podcast. So, I mean, we're
Mhm.
moving up there.
So speaking of comments, let me just read. We did get a comment on one of the recaps, so I just wanted to read that because I thought it was really funny. It says, "This is from Nikos, and it
Okay.
was put on actually the season 1 episode 10 recap for Alpha and Omega. It
Hmm.
says, "Thank you so much for all your recaps. They are clear, succinct, and make the show even more interesting than it already is. I will recommend this blog to accompany the show to anyone who plans to watch it, and I
Hmm.
look forward to reading your other reviews and recaps onto season 2." And I thought this comment sounded familiar, and I was right because they continue to say, "I am copying the comment from the previous guy that made the same comment exactly 1 year ago. This way, I am creating a mini dark episode. Story repeats after a year. However, I totally agree. You accompanied my watching, and that helped me a lot. Thanks."
You got your little bootstrap happening over there. That's cool.
Maybe Nikos will come back every year and make the same comment. That would be fun.
I think it's about that time for us to begin this discussion. I'm ready if you are.
Yes, let's do it.
Let's make it happen.
So the episode begins with a replay of Michael Conwell sealing the suicide note and hanging himself on the ceiling rafters. Jonas then wakes up. This was shown in the very first episode of the show, and the showrunners poignantly start the ending where it all began.
Yeah, like we get like another peek at Mikkel's artwork here, which all kind of resembles like the God particle and like the between ways bridge that we see later on. I mean, not really, but I mean, just that big black darkness is all he's painting, and I kind of forgotten about that until this episode.
Hmm. Did you have to check your remote to make sure you were on the right episode when you started?
That's right, because this is season one, episode one. That's really smart the way
Yes.
they did that.
Yeah. And so then the first chapter of the episode is really a 20-minute conversation we witnessed between Claudia and Adam as
Hmm.
she patiently explains how everything is really connected.
And
So I
Adam
broke
actually shuts up and patiently listens. It's really nice that he does that. He's an active listener in this episode.
Yeah, I feel like it's nice that they gave this actor a little bit
Hmm.
of a different emotional affect in this episode.
Yes.
Every all along we've seen him, he's just this real hard ass. He's always he's talking the most. He doesn't really let anybody get in a word edgewise. Asks all the questions, holds all the cards.
Hmm.
And so
That.
Claudia's presence kind of stops the pattern from happening.
Yeah, he's been in her presence before, but like her commanding like aura here, I guess because she's got the answers and she's presenting him new information. Um, you're getting ready to walk us through it, but like making his brain work a different way. Got to hand it to Claudia. I mean, she's tops. I mean,
Hmm.
I'm not gonna say who's my favorite this episode. I never do until the end. I get drop little hints here and there. But I mean, if you talk about who my favorite character of Dark all around is, like this episode might have changed my opinion about that.
Wow. Okay. Well, that definitely gives us a lot to think about. Yeah, it's interesting that this starts with Claudia and Adam. And Adam is Jonas, and it kind of, as much as the show spends on Jonas and Marta,
Hmm.
there's there's these different duos that are that are frenemies through the show, and one of them is definitely Claudia and Jonas. They keep getting mixed up in different time periods together. What
Right.
did Claudia call it? The positive feedback loop.
That's a good
And
way to put it. Yeah.
yeah, that they're basically just they're the ones that are keeping them thinking they know what's going on because the older self will tell the younger self, like Claudia, will tell
Hmm.
younger Jonas, but then Jonas will then tell Claudia. So they're bootstrapping it up hardcore. Um, but so yeah, we're with this one of the dynamic duos of the show being Claudia and Jonas slash Adam. But I broke protocol a little bit here just because it would be really boring to recap every single thing that was said. So I tried to
Hmm.
summarize, and that's not always my forte, but
I think you did a great job with this. You pointed out the better parts of Claudia's words, and then you gave us some bullet points of some things we're seeing while she's talking. So I think it works out really well.
mhm. So she mentions that every attempt Adam has made at untangling the knot has just led to the same conclusion. And
Okay.
solid start here because Adam knows that. He's witnessed
Right.
it every
Yeah, that's like
time.
that's what he keeps talking about. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
That point has been reiterated a lot. That's right.
Yeah, and she comes in here, let's remember, she did come in here at the moment where he tried to kill Marta by
Hmm.
tying her to a pile of rubble and putting the force of two apocalypses upon her at once. And he thought that would lead to total oblivion, and it didn't. So he's like, my plan didn't work again.
Oh, let's not slip past the fact that he did just commit murder. I mean, whether or not that Martha is real or a dual Martha or whatever she is, he did just kill her. So, I don't want us to forget that.
Yeah. He did kill her. Well, I don't think I forgot about it. I'm just saying that.
I did until just now. Until you just reminded me. So I'm reminding myself, "Oh yeah, he's a murderer." So we don't want to
Yeah.
get too happy.
But he wasn't just killing her to kill her. He had like a main goal. Of course, yeah. Did he
We
have to do
mentioned
it
last
that way?
episode, everybody's
Yeah.
a murderer and a kidnapper in this show. We gotta get past that,
Yeah.
or I gotta get past that.
Okay. He did not kill the origin when he killed Marta because the unknown is not the true origin.
Right.
Now that's
And I
new information for him.
and I guess for us too, like, we're learning
Mhm.
this as he's learning it.
Mhm. Yeah, because we were fed that theory. I guess we can call it a theory at this point. It didn't
Mhm.
happen.
Sure.
The true origin lies outside in a third world. And the concept of triquetra comes to bite Adam in the butt, and he's embarrassed that he missed it. Nothing is complete without a third dimension. And this is something that was talked about all the way back in season 1
Mhm.
in the workshop between Tannhaus and Stranger Jonas. So Adam should feel dumb that he didn't think about that.
Yeah, and he's had a lot of time to, like, really think about every single angle of everything. But, I mean, this is a story beat, so we have to, take it for what it is. But yes, like, I've done my part as well as I'm sure you have, of, like, looking through Instagram posts and looking back at Reddit posts to just see, just to see if I've missed anything or see if there's any interesting theories that I could bring up here that the triqueta at that time was presented to him at that time back in season 1, and
Mhm.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Yeah.
It's clear.
But there's been a lot of instances that where we've talked about threes, so
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, there's like the three unknown. What other
Yeah,
threes do
there's
we have?
always, like, an older, younger, and, middle-aged version of
Right.
everybody in this show.
And just 33, all the threes. So I'm sure there's more we're not thinking of.
Yeah.
So, in the origin world, Tannhaus tried to bring back someone from the dead, but instead he split and destroyed his world, creating what became Adam's world and Eva's world. And the glow from the machine is orange, splitting into yellow and red. And this explains why the primary color at the school And the power plant in Adam's world is yellow. And in Eva's world, we often see red. The suits, for instance, were the bright yellow color in Adam's world, but in Eva's world, the hazmat suits at the power plant were red.
Mhm.
Those two together make orange, and so that's the
Yeah.
splitting of the worlds.
Very neat show device. I mean, of course, all colors exist in all of the worlds, but the prominent colors that we see that have symbolism are different in the two worlds. Just really neat, like visual device. Everything about this show, like even towards the last episode here, really folds into itself perfectly, and
Mhm.
you, just the fact that it's orange and it just makes perfect sense that like red and yellow make orange. It's, um, I don't know. I'm in love all over again.
All right. In order to untangle the knot, Adam, Jonas, and Eva, Marta, must prevent the invention of time travel in the origin world.
Yeah, that right there is just a neat concept for the show. It's like you want to stop all this stuff from happening. Well, stop time travel from happening because that's exactly what caused all this is time travel loops. So it kind of like again folds into itself perfectly.
Just get rid of time travel. That's all.
Make it not happen.
Yeah, but then we wouldn't have the show.
Yeah, we want the
Okay.
show. So,
Yeah.
well, we get a peek into alternate universes. We're lucky enough as Earthlings to be able to view this world that never existed. It's great.
hmm Claudia feels bad that she had to hide the truth from Jonas, but she
Hmm.
needed him to stay the course. She needed everything to keep happening as it always had.
She's very busy. She has an agenda and she has all these places she has to be. Um, she's a busy gal.
But this is the first time they're having this conversation, so change can happen. She knows this because she spent 33 years looking for answers and realized that not everyone is part of the knot.
Hmm.
Adam can use the loophole during the apocalypse when time stands still for a fraction of a second. During that brief second, the chain of cause and effect is broken and true change is possible. And Adam will send Jonas to use this loophole to create a fourth ending.
Right. Which seems like it should be the third ending if this is the triketa, but I mean,
Yeah.
yes, that's right. The end of Adam's world, Eva's world, the bad origin world, and create a perfect ending for the good origin world where good things happen. And I guess the world doesn't explode. Because while she was talking all about that, um Tannhaus did fire up the machine, right? We saw that happen. Yeah, because you said it was orange, it was an orange thing, and then like those big white
Mhm.
pillars of light. I kind of got the impression that got a little out of control. And
Mhm.
I saw some theories that I kind of agreed with that Tannhaus, when he did that, he destroyed the origin world and then created these
Mhm.
two split worlds with Adam and Eva.
Yeah.
Which, there's really no proof of that one way or the other, but that kind of makes sense to me because it seems like that machine was was pretty powerful and out of control. And I don't know if it had the power to rip the universe apart, but it seems like it had the potential based on what it did. So I'm kind of a believer of that.
Mhm. Yeah, somebody so one of the another recap I read was saying that so we saw Tannhaus doing, trying to run this machine several times. We see that scene several times.
Hmm.
And so I assumed it was the same scene. They were just showing it again to remind us, like, remember when this happened?
Yes.
But somebody
Hmm.
else said actually, this is actually him trying it multiple times. So, but that
Well, that makes sense too.
the
Okay.
neat thing about that is it's kind of like the same argument that we could debate later on the show is like, are you team loop, are you team like it actually happened one time? It's like it really doesn't
Hmm.
matter. It could be like he did it several times, it could be he's just doing it one time and we're seeing it multiple times. Either way we're seeing like this chain of cause and effect. And so the final, it could be like he kept trying and failing, and then at the
Right.
end he tries
Yes.
and he keeps increasing the power each time.
That's what
So
I
that
think,
final
yes.
time, yeah.
It's exactly what I think right there, and I'm definitely team this happened one time, and it seems like it happens multiple times, especially to people like Jonas and Martha and Claudia, because they keep running into alternate versions of themselves and alternate versions of other people. So it seems like it's this endless cycle, but I'm really a firm believer that it all just went through and happened one time and folded into itself, and I have no way to prove that, but that's my line of thinking. And
Mm,
this episode told me otherwise. Like the characters within the episode and the show itself is telling me differently. It's telling me that this is a loop that keeps happening over and over again. Even though the show that I trust is telling me that, I'm just thinking to myself, well, the characters are wrong. The characters think that because they're trapped in the loop and they feel like it keeps happening over and over again. Um,
mm.
so it's not that I think I'm smarter than Claudia because I don't. But I mean, from my perspective, it seems like everything just happens one time because if it kept happening multiple times, it's like, when does that start time begin and end? And does it affect other people? And surely other people in the world, like all the people who work in the labs and the other police officers who aren't quite involved in this loop and all their neighbors and everybody else in town would,
Mhm.
start to notice things going awry as well. I'm not
Well,
really
yeah.
backing up my theory, but
Yeah. There's actually one scene I wanna talk about later that makes me almost sure that it has happened more than once. But
okay, yeah.
but yeah. So, as Claudia describes the intricacies of Trinity to Jonas, she uses many of the exact lines that Tannhaus did when talking to Stranger Jonas in season 1 in his workshop. This means that all along, main writer Jan Fries was giving us hints as to the
Hmm.
show's big reveal. If you look closely now, you can see they gave us the red threads to untangle this labyrinth from the beginning. Specifically, I'm talking about the line about dualities. We think about the world in dualities: black, white, good, evil, but this is wrong. And that Tannhaus said that exact same line. So it's like Claudia is almost a conduit of Tannhaus, and she's his copy in that's not in the origin world. Like he channeled himself into her somehow. And then, yes, echoing something you just said, is that Claudia mentions that in the origin world, Tannhaus's actions destroyed the world. So
Oh,
theoretically, if we traveled to World 3 after Tannhaus created the passage, we would find nothing or another type of apocalypse. We never see that though. So the destruction in Adam and Eva's world is an effect of that in the origin world. But I hadn't thought about that before, that it says that he destroyed his own world and created R2. So if we went to the origin world, what would we see? Would we see a destruction, or would it be oblivion? So,
yeah, I think it'd probably be similar to Martha's World. Maybe it would just be completely dark, like the show title suggests.
yeah. Or it could be a combo. I don't know. Who knows? It
I'm
just
just trying to think how like one small machine that could fit inside a bunker could like take out the entire world. Um, Anything's possible in sci-fi though. I did just
mhm.
watch a show last night. I can't the name it Foundation, and it's like they have this huge world and like just these two terrorists with just like, random bombs, small bombs, were able to take out like this entire world, very similar, and took out like 100 million individuals. And it's like, wow, that's like a really weak system if just like two dudes can do that. And I feel the same way about this. But
Mhm.
Tannhaus is supposed to be like the ultra genius.
Yeah. Or do they mean it figuratively? Like he
Hmm.
destroyed his own world, meaning how he destroyed his own world by his actions leading to his family's death, Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
So
sure. I mean, yeah, they do a lot of that kind of double talk in this show. So, Claudia, what did you mean? Let's come
we
back.
need to bring her in. We need to bring her in. So then, in the middle of the monologue, we see Eva instructing Alt Marta with the giant gash on her left cheek about why she must kill Jonas. Eva tells Marta that she carries both worlds inside of her, referring to her son, the unknown. Marta's son will give life to everyone in the knot. As Eva finishes sharing this revelation, the unknown comes into the Lux lair. The smallest unknown comes forward and grips Marta tightly around her waist. This is the first time he will meet his mother. This is the
Mm,
only time the youngest one, I mean. This is the only time we see the unknown show any affection and only the second time we have seen him try to connect with another human. The first was Trant.
that's right. I'd forgotten about that. Good reminder. Do you remember which episode that was? That had to have been not episode. Yeah, which episode that was?
It was something
That
in
was this.
season 3.
It was definitely this season because that's when the unknown showed up. It must have been like episode 2 or 3. But yeah, I didn't realize this is the only time the little guy is seeing quote unquote his mother because I think about his mother being any version of Martha, any version of Eva. So I guess that's
Mhm.
not exactly true, is it?
I mean, yeah, there's so much of it we don't see here. We don't see Marta give birth.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see anybody raise this child. um, but he meets, it's obvious that he's met stranger Marta, maybe, unless she was just hanging out in the apocalypse world for Jonas and Alt Marta to get there. And he's met Eva because Eva's the one that sends him on the
Mm-hmm.
missions. So they're his mother, but I guess they mean like the young mother you think of when you think of somebody nurturing you and taking
I don't
care of you. And
yeah.
so yeah, it's really kind of sad seeing
It
this. He
is.
comes in and just and hugs her, and I think Eva says something to the something like, "He's been waiting a long time for you."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't get the picture that he was ever like nurtured, really. I think he was just straight up raised and taught what he needed to be taught. And in my head canon, it was Stranger Martha, and maybe Eva that did that because I don't think. Well, I mean, there has to be a Martha that exists between young Martha and Stranger Martha. Just in my
Yeah.
head canon, that's who did that is Stranger Martha because she had to do more than just wander around the desert for 33 years.
Mhm.
Sounds biblical, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I'm just trying to picture how the unknown like, how that happened, that there's the 3 of them. Yeah. There's obviously, that's just a
That's
big
something we
question
can
mark.
ponder. That's something we can ponder on one of our later episodes because I think that's a great idea actually because I've seen another version of that in another show that I'd like to bring up in that episode.
Hmm, okay. So, Marta doesn't seem to know what to think of this revelation that she has this child,
Yeah.
and based on her response, you might think she's repulsed by his presence, and that makes me feel sad for the unknown, who seems genuinely happy to finally meet this mother. Marta cries but doesn't embrace him back, so I'm not sure what she's crying about. Then the middle aged unknown touches Marta tenderly on the face like men do to Hannah. He wipes a tear from her eye, and we have come to associate this type of touch with a level of disinterest, so it doesn't come across as pleasant.
Yeah, with the show math, I can see where you're coming from. I didn't take it that way. When I saw this scene, I saw the little kid hugging Martha, and I saw the older guy. I thought it was a tender thing, like, "Oh, mom, don't cry. I love you." So I think you're right. what you're saying here, because like if you look at all the past versions of that, it does kind of add up.
Mhm.
So I'm agreeing with you here.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I'm agreeing with myself, but it just seemed weird that they would pick that, um, so, yeah,
Every motion is deliberate. Every line is deliberate, and there's no wasted lines in the show whatsoever,
yeah.
which is one
But
thing that I like about it.
he doesn't say, "You're beautiful," or anything like that, at least, so that would be
Thank
if they
God.
really wanted to channel it, they would have done that. Um, so then Stranger Marta comes into the lair and gives her a change of clothes and a gun.
Mhm.
Eva tells her that if she wants Jonas to live, that she must do what has always been done. Bartosz is now nowhere to be found, so all sense of rescue, familiarity, or warmth has now been taken from Marta.
It's interesting. Do you think he was sent away by Eva, like to go probably go on like another mission somewhere?
I don't know,
Like
you
we
never
can't
know
even
with
speculate.
Bartosz.
He's not that bad. Come on, he's just playing video games somewhere. That's all. He found a Nintendo off stage.
Maybe. That would be nice to think maybe he has a kind of normalcy happen. So now we see Marta off stage as she prepares to shoot Jonas. And I can't help thinking that this feels like a stage play. Stranger Marta
Exactly.
waits outside the door until she gets her cue and then enters the
Mhm.
room. Then Marta enters stage left and delivers the lines she must. It all feels like a performance that no one really wants to attend.
I like that last line, and I thought the exact same thing too. I wrote in my notes that Martha waits backstage until she gets her cue to go on stage. So I basically wrote the exact same thing you did in our note taking here, which I guess you're supposed to think that. That's exactly what it seems like. That she's just going through a role. And then, hey, think about this. That is what Martha was. She was in the play at school for
Mhm.
Ariadne. So like this is kind of like just another role she's playing that she has to get right. Better get this one right.
Mhm. Yeah, but she definitely doesn't want to do what she's doing, but it's like, "Here you
Yeah.
go, and here's even your costume that you need to put
Yeah.
on."
Your stage props. That's right.
So the next scene shows Claudia and Trant talking in the old graveyard in the apocalypse world. Trant shares that he always thought Regina was his daughter. Claudia wanted that too, but now she's glad that he isn't because Regina isn't part of the knot and can truly live. She talks Trant into killing Regina because she's not living much of a life anyway. She also knows that if Regina dies, her younger self, meaning Claudia, will be motivated to move heaven and earth to find her and or to find a way to save her. And before he leaves, the two old lovers embrace.
Yeah, loving this, all this. I- it's nice they came back and they showed us the reason that Trant, goes in there and kills Regina because it's kind of left, it's cool they actually showed the conversation and like the emotion behind it. Instead of us just speculating, oh, I guess he just killed her because she has cancer or something. I don't know. this this is a lot more I don't know, romantic, I suppose, in a way. Um yeah, and I guess we can't really quite talk about c- we'll talk about listeners, go ahead if you want to hear us talk about who who Regina's dad is. Fast forward about an hour because we'll be talking about it at the very end. Is that right? That's the best place to discuss that.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so.
at this point, it's just interesting that like it's like what Tron's not not Regina's dad, then who the hell is?
Mhm.
That had all the question marks shooting out of my head at this point. So I was really looking forward to finding out that conclusion.
Mhm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
all
think
that awkward conversation between Trant and Regina in the car, that didn't have to happen, Trant. You could have just been chill.
Did she say anything about me?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about this concept of, she tells Adam earlier that she realized Regina isn't part of the knot. And I
Yes.
wonder how she did, it's like it's another mystery of the show. We don't really know what she means by that.
Well, I think she understands how the knot's working because I mean, this show, that's another note that I wrote down that I haven't gotten to, is that Jonas and Martha are busy creating the knot and perpetuating the knot. Meanwhile, Claudia is trying to unravel it. So she's been spending all this time doing her family trees. You know what I mean? Like you spent like last night doing the Jonas family tree. Like Claudia had 33 years to do this. So I think she just figured out that like she is not part of this knot because if she was trance then she would be, but because her lineage comes from elsewhere she's not. And I don't know, again, back with those trees, they showed the trees when they were talking about that. That's exactly how those burl trees work, where they get like a knot inside of itself and it just keeps perpetuating the knot, and you can't untie that knot without killing the tree.
Let's fact check this with Heather. Anything you say about burl trees will be fact check with Heather.
Everything I'm saying
um,
from this point forward, I've learned from Heather and
oh,
Wikipedia.
just going back to Claudia and Trant and like the belief that they were Regina's parents.
Hmm.
Part of the proof of that also, or what confused people so much, is that in the Eretlux layer, there's that family tree on the stone that she has, right? With all the people's
Sure.
names.
Yeah.
On that family tree in the Eretlux layer, it actually says Regina's parents are Claudia and Trant.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so the theory is about that she lied to Eva and told her to hide from Eva that Regina was not part of the knot, so she wouldn't suspect, to hide her information or her secret. And so, yeah, it was like a piece of fact that she was
Hmm.
masking from Eva that's in the show. And so I think a lot of people, were very part of the confusion was they were like, no, it's on the family tree. It's on the family. Like, if you go to Reddit, there's a lot of people that
Oh,
were like
okay.
really upset because they were like, but it's even in the thing. And they're like, well, Claudia must have lied. And there it is in writing. So,
Just like I was saying, like I think some of the characters are wrong in some of their assessments. Them as characters are wrong. They were written to be wrong, right? So
hmm.
like that really resonates with me.
Okay. So during the next part of Claudia's monologue, we see a split screen of the worlds paralleling what happens between Ulrich and Helge in World 1 and 2. We've already seen what happens between them in World 1, but not World 2. So, just a reminder, in World 1, Ulrich arrives in 1953 and encounters little boy Helge bashing him in the ear with a rock. In World 2, Helge is making pinecone figurines outside of his cabin in 1986, and this is middle aged Helge. Ulrich comes by asking if Helge saw an old man, and Ulrich does not recognize Helge, and today's date is November 8th, 1986. Ulrich sees the bunker door open and assumes Helge is hiding Mads in the bunker. So this time he hits Helge in the eye with a rock. Ulrich then drags middle aged Helge down the stairs to the bunker, covered in the most heinous yellow wallpaper ever known to mankind. As horrible as the blue wallpaper room is in World 1, I can barely look at this room.
I mean, I thought yellow was supposed to be like the color of hope. And like, we always associate with the yellow raincoat and like so I think you should be loving this yellow room. You should feel at home.
But it's a different yellow, it's like mustard yellow, and did you know you can buy this wallpaper? If you go to
No.
Pinterest, maybe it's a joke, I don't know, but if you go to Pinterest, like, um if you put, like, dark bunker wallpaper, you
Okay.
can there's pictures of it, so I'm like, I
Blue
wonder if you
and
could actually
yellow?
yeah, blue and yellow, they have it, like, half and they show both colors, but it's like, why would you want that for your child?
I think it's kinda cute, actually. I mean, I don't know if I do a whole room, but, like, when you do, like, a strip of your room, like, where you do, like, an accent wall or, like, an accent stripe
Okay.
across the room, that'd be kinda cool. I think I would dig that.
Maybe an
Um
accent wall, yeah.
Getting back to our show, this split screen, like I've told you before, how much of a sucker I am for it and how I
Mhm.
love like these time parallels. And I have a like a little just one-off random theory about this. I know we have a little bit more to go. Actually, yeah, I'll let you finish and then I'll give my comments.
Okay. So Ulrich hears a scraping sound and turns around to find old Helge brandishing a crowbar. He proudly smashes Ulrich in the head 3 times. He then reaches into his pocket and pulls out the 2 pennies. Just then, Claudia shows up, and middle aged Helge begins to stir. He is alive after all. Ulrich
Mhm.
didn't realize you can't kill someone that already exists. He
Mhm.
needed he needed Noah to show him that. So he didn't have that. So when old Helge told Ulrich that she said I had to do it, he meant Claudia.
So you were right. We had this discussion a couple episodes about back when Helge said she like, I was like, "It's gotta be Eva, right?" And here's the
I
proof
think we
positive that it
both
was Claudia.
yeah, no, I didn't think of Claudia for some reason. I guess I had forgotten this. I was like, figured it was Eva. So, yeah.
I guess we both figured it was Eva, and here's proof that it was not, I suppose. But it's just neat that, like, how this comes around and how yeah, it's old Helge, and then it's young Helge. We see all 3 Helges in this sequence of events. We see baby Helge, middle age, and old one, and it's the same age Ulrich all 3 times. So what I was gonna say with, like, my little just mini theory that doesn't even make any sense and doesn't even need to exist is I bet you, like, because they're showing this as, like, this defining event to show how the 2 worlds are parallel and how this is, like, an important event that, like, led people down a path. It would have been cool if they coulda showed, like, the Mickle thing. They coulda gone back to Mickle and, like, shown, like, the point when Mickle got taken away. But I think because he's older now and, like, he looks so much different, like, we saw Mickle, like, in the episode 1 of this season, and he just can't play his younger self anymore. I think maybe, like it's obvious the showrunners knew what they were doing from the 1st season, so it would have been really cool if they could have, like, filmed some, like, season 3 stuff with little Mickle while he was still that age. Um, Maybe that, just wasn't something they could do. But I think that would have been a neat moment to go back to, like, our defining Mickle moment with his skeleton costume.
Yeah, it would have been, but what would he have done in World 2 because World 2 Mickle doesn't do much.
Just like the moment he goes through the cave, I think. Think that
Yeah,
was, like, a
but he
really,
didn't
like
go through the cave. I think that's but
well,
yeah, I mean, I do
the
think you're
moment he
right that go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the apex of, like, season 1, episode 1 is, like, when he, like, disappears. Um, I don't know. I just think that would have been a neat thing to go back to if we could have. But just
Yeah.
because of aging, we could not.
But also what I'm saying is World 2 Mickle doesn't do anything, so he wouldn't be going to the cave. So what would they show World 2 Mickle doing?
Oh, right. I see what you're saying. Yeah, because these 2 storylines are exactly the same, basically, just a different age. Okay, I'm with you. Well, can
Because
you
yeah,
agree with me that? that Helge has terrible fashion sense of jackets. Like I've been like clocking his jackets this whole show, and none of his jackets are any good. They're awful. They're like they don't fit him right. They're just unseemly and just bad material. They did him wrong.
Sure. I'll agree that Helge's fashion sense isn't the best, but I think they did that on purpose. But,
Yeah.
Steve, I will
Yeah.
say what I
Okay.
really want to talk about with this scene is this is the scene that makes me think things are happening more than once.
Oh, okay.
Because okay, so because we have to think about the 2 pennies. Let's talk
Okay.
about the 2 pennies. So,
Yeah.
in what we see in this scene, um, when Helge hits Ulrich in the head with the crowbar, he
Right.
goes into his pocket and he picks out the 2 pennies. He finds the 2 pennies in Ulrich's pocket and gets them. And just then,
Yes.
Claudia arrives. So, just in the nick of time, Claudia arrives and sees. So that makes me think that Claudia set up this operation somehow. Like she told now I you could say, well, since she's the time wizard, she just knows when to show up. But I feel like that was like a test to see. Remember, there was the 1 penny, then Charlotte had both pennies. So then he goes in the pocket and he finds 2 pennies, but he wouldn't have found 2 pennies the first time. He would have only found 1 penny. Because Ulrich had 2 pennies because Charlotte came to his house and dropped off the evidence with him and Hannah when she was acting all weird. And then they found then they got the 2 pennies from the pocket. So I think like it seems like Claudia,
Okay.
and during that scene, Claudia is also talking about how she kept trying things to see if I forget exactly what the quote is, but she says something to the effect of, I tried everything. And then they show this thing with Ulrich as if she's saying, this is one of the things I tried, was sending both pennies through to see if they would come out. And
Mm.
they did. I don't know. So I guess that's like, yeah, it's not
Okay.
the most solid evidence, but
I mean, if it convinces
yeah.
you, then that's all that matters. I mean, for me, I think that like the 2 pennies there is just another example of the bootstrap paradox, which falls in line with the one timeline thing. And the object is moving back and forth in time, but it's just happening one time as it moves back and forth in time. That's just my opinion, though. Um, as for your point about how would Claudia know exactly what time to be there, which is an excellent point that I have thought about. Because there's another moment in this episode too, where another person just seems to know exactly what's going to happen at exactly what time, and that is because they're time traveling. Because maybe their younger self or another person's younger self may have like fed them information like that younger Helge at some point in time between grown into older Helge, told Claudia this situation that happened. So that's how Claudia knew to be there. um I don't know. That- it's funny that the same object can help convince us of our different theories.
Mhm. And if it happened again, they'd have 3 pennies or maybe 4. Okay.
The
So
tricetta pennies.
okay, so after this Ulrich and Helge thing, Claudia finishes her instructions to Adam and we cut to black. So, we've now finished section 1 of the episode.
We finished the opening dialogue, but that's still
Yeah.
that was 20 minutes right there, right, of the
Yeah.
episode. That was a
Mhm.
pretty long one, and Adam did a good job of shutting up and listening.
Yes. So the action picks up on the day of the apocalypse in World 1. At the Conwald house, Jonas hovers over the body of Marta, now dead after Adam shot her. Jonas promises to make things right. In walks Adam, who manages to look a little sheepish. He looks down at the body of Marta, too. Jonas lashes out bitterly, asking why he's still there. He grabs Adam by the collar, shaking him. Adam tells Jonas he can explain everything, but that they have to leave now. Jonas needs to trust him.
Of course.
There's no reason for Jonas to trust this man who has fed him nothing but
Mhm,
lies, but
mhm.
this Jonas is at his weakest point. He has just lost everything. Adam powers up the golden snitch and grabs Jonas by the arm. I do appreciate how Jonas yells, "What is that?" several times. And that is how Bartosz felt when the stranger burst in and forced them all to time travel with him. Adam and Jonas poof out, leaving a trail of golden stars.
Now, something about, like, those golden stars has kinda convinced me that, like, you know how I've been talking about how in time travel movies, it kinda bothers me how, like, a person, like, if they like, in Back to the Future, like, the picture of his brother and sister disappearing. Like, that's always kinda bothered me. I'm like, they're like a real thing full of atoms. They can't do that. But then I see something like this, and I'm reminded that when they're time traveling, they're doing the same thing with their atoms. Their atoms are dissipating and then they're reforming in another place. So, what happens when somebody, like in Back to the Future, his brother and sister cease to disappear for that moment? Um, yeah, their atoms are dissipating, and instead of going back in time, they're going to non existence. They're going into a black hole. So like this episode has helped change my mind about that because that always kind of bothered me a little bit. Um, people getting sucked out of existence. But it seems like within the logic of this, that makes sense to me.
Hmm. Well, I guess it's interesting that Adam shows up and says this speech, right? We have to go right now. You have to trust me. He has the golden snitch. He grabs Adam by the arm. It's a
Right.
lot like what Alt Marta did when she shows up and saves him.
Yeah, I actually have a lot to say about like all this. Cuz that's
Yeah,
really
please do.
weird first off that yeah, he was just there to kill him. Or to kill her. He did kill her, and now he shows up again, and it's such a bizarre sequence, because like you said, it's a completely different Adam. He's acting different. He has a different vibe. He's shaken. But more importantly, he has that golden snitch so he can, like, show up at any moment that he wants. So it's kinda interesting how he's able to show up at that exact moment, as opposed to, like, he could have showed up like right before he shot Martha or something, if you look at it from that respect. I think that Claudia must have done a really good job of convincing him of an exact time, exact place to be. Um, because we don't really see all like the intricacies of like the details of the plan, the logistics of this plan that Adam is coming to tell Jonas. But it must be a lot. I mean, there's a lot to do here, and it all depends on, like, everything happening within a split second of when it's supposed to happen. There's a lot to lose.
Mhm. Yeah, and I didn't go back and look at what Adam says right before, so I was seeing if I could find that really quick.
You mean the murder
Um,
at the Adam that shot Martha?
when he because like, he's appearing right after he's killed Marta,
Right.
right? So, I'm like, "What did he actually say?" He mentions the circle closes,
Yeah.
and he says the cycle has to repeat. What is created today is the beginning of the end. The dark matter must be created so that in the future it can lead to its new purpose, and that I'm the trigger that will make Jonas into what Adam is today. Which, it
Mhm.
sounds a lot like what Claudia says to Trant, you have to kill Regina so that, that I'll move heaven and earth to do this.
That's right.
Um, You'll carry this pain your whole life until you're ready to let go, and you can stop me or save Marta." And then he walks out of the house. So,
I
yeah,
mean, a
that's
lot
quite a
depends
lot
on
to
like
do.
the yeah, a lot depends on people just following the other person around despite whatever trauma they just went through. Because it seems like all these characters have been through a lot at these moments.
Mhm.
And did we already talk about how Eva has been aware of that fraction of a second? Did we skip over that, or does that come in later?
I had it in the recap, but I took that part out as a bullet point. But yeah, yeah, we did skip that. So if you want to talk about that now, we
I
can.
do. That's what I really wanted to go back to because I feel like that was a big thing that's been skipped. Is something that I completely missed. My first watch through of this was that Eva was aware of this fraction of a second, and that Claudia became aware of that just through happenstance, right? Like Eva isn't aware that Claudia is aware of that. Is that
I
that
don't know if
seems
Eva's
correct to
not
me?
aware of it, but Claudia mentions that Eva uses this loophole to send herself hither and thither. So she's been using it to send her one direction or another.
Right, right. But yeah, I kind of get the impression that Eva doesn't, because last episode it seemed like Eva kind of knew that Claudia was like a different Claudia, and like the kind of like sideways look she was giving her. But based on Eva's reaction towards the end of this episode, it seems like she's completely taken aback. Like she thinks it's just another perpetuation of the knot, and it's not. It's not the knot. Because of Claudia. Um, finding out about that 1 second gap and exposing it. Just shout out Claudia again for how smart she is.
Mhm. So after Adam and Jonas poof out, they arrive in the cave where Alt Marta took Jonas. Adam explains that they are in another world. Jonas can avoid becoming him if he will listen to Adam and trust him. And they leave the cave together in World 2. It's strange to see Jonas coming out of the cave looking lost. And this is his first time this is his first time in World 2. And Lewis Hoffman has had to play so many versions of Jonas feeling one way or another. So shout
Right.
out to him, the actor, for playing all these different Jonases.
Yeah, I did realize that was like this Eunice's first time in World 2, um, until you pointed it out to me here. So I'm sure some listeners might be in the same boat. So yeah, that is kind of neat. Let's count all the Jonases at some point. Because we thought we did at one point, but I think we were wrong. I think there's more Jonases than we realize.
Yeah. So Adam warns him that he doesn't have much time. He must save the other Marta. Jonas is surprised that there is another Marta. Adam
Hmm.
tells him that yes, both of them must go together to accomplish this goal. What we know is a drop, what we don't know is an ocean. Adam doesn't spend precious moments offering apologies. There's nothing he can do to bring the other Marta back, but he can give Jonas a companion to travel with into the darkness for this last adventure.
He needs that companion, though. That's a pretty important companion to have.
He does end up needing her, but yeah, I'm not sure if he really, Adam says here they both have to do it, but I'm not sure if I'm not sure if that's really true, but okay. I mean, but it's kind of like Frodo needed Samwise Gamgee to
Hmm.
help him do it. Like he Frodo was the one that had to carry the ring, but
Yep.
Samwise kept him going. So,
Carried Frodo. That's right.
yeah. Yeah.
And I think Martha did a couple things at the end of this episode
Mhm.
that that complimented Jonas that, with her not being there, maybe it wouldn't have gone that way. Maybe it was her words that got through and not Jonas's words.
Yeah.
It just makes, linear sense. Jonas
Yeah.
and Martha, it's got to be.
But it's nice that Adam drops in this. We bring back this line we heard Bern Doppler say was the
Yep.
first one on the show that we heard say. So, um, yeah, and I don't know where Adam heard this, but maybe Claudia told him. Who knows?
He told himself at one point, probably. Like this might be the first time young Jonas, is hearing this. Well, okay, that theory doesn't really hold true
Yeah, no, it
because
doesn't. They didn't. This is not something they wrote in the journal that I know
nope.
of. So nearby, Helge walks toward the cave saying tick tock. Adam knows it's the day of the apocalypse in Eva's world. The loophole exists here too. In the moment that time stands still, Jonas must get to Marta before Magnus and Franziska. If Jonas misses the loophole, the loop will start again. Alt Marta will go with Magnus and Franziska back to regular Adam, who will send her to 1888.
That's right. It does have to be like that exact moment. Yeah, because otherwise she's getting ready to bail, and then he won't be able to grab her.
Yeah. So, something that could be missed here is that Claudia tells Adam that she had to use the loophole to get to him to tell him about the way out of the labyrinth. That means Adam had to wait to travel back in order to use the loop again. And this is only made even clearer by the appearance of Helge. We are seeing the scene that we just saw before on the split screen.
Yeah, I did miss all that. So I don't really have any notes because I completely missed that until I read your recap, a couple hours ago.
Yeah, it's something that I was like, wait, so we just saw Helge going TikTok, and I was like, wait, we just saw this before. And
Mm-hmm.
I was starting to think, and I think I was overthinking a little bit, but I was like, Claudia tells Adam she had to use that loophole so she could tell him about the loophole. So that means
Right. Sure.
and at first I was thinking, does that mean he had to wait another cycle to get to the loophole? And I was like, no, no, no,
Oh,
he
heck
can time
no.
travel. He can time travel to right before where the loophole was. And I guess if they missed it, he could travel back again. It's like a back to the future situation. But the way
Mm-hmm.
that they say it is that if you miss the loophole, the loop will start again. So I don't know. I guess
That
they
is
would
the
just have to keep redoing it somehow.
Yeah, I don't. I guess it would be a different show if that happened. If he missed Martha, I think. I think maybe he would just have to rush and try to do it by himself, and probably fail, and then the loop would start again. Sure.
Adam
Yeah.
can't run that fast. Yeah, it hurts your head a little bit to too much to think about it too much, but it could be that like hopefully if that happened, Adam could just like it's like rebooting a video game. I'll just start over at that position and do
Respawn.
this again. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. If he misses Martha, that's right. We'll get to it, but that's right. He's got infinite lives he can he can do here.
So back in Sigmundus, older Claudia tells middle-aged Claudia that Adam will send Jonas on the mission. He and Marta will stop this from happening. Middle aged Claudia asks older Claudia to tell dad, Egon, that she's sorry. They hug. Older Claudia just reminds her that if all goes well, Regina will live. This could be somewhat confusing. If Adam will travel to Jonas and send he and Marta to the origin world, why does older Claudia have to keep traveling? Wouldn't her work be done? But no, she must go into 1987 to talk to her younger self with the red hair and then bury the suitcase time machine
Mm-hmm.
for Claudia to find in 1987. Otherwise, those things will never happen. She also must send Stranger Jonas on his way and tear the pages from the diary. She must stop Jonas from interfering with Michael's suicide. and she has appointments with Tannhaus, Agnes, Noah, and Egon. So when Claudia goes to Helge's cabin to be shot, her work is complete. She can rest knowing Regina will live, but not until that moment.
Yeah, I don't even know what to add there because like you, you got it all spelled out for us. And I'm looking at all these appointments in her book, like all the stuff she has to do, and like her little calendar is full. Like up until like her last moment when she can finally rest. That's when she's dead, shot by Noah. I mean, it's wild. Um Hugging yourself is wild. Just that, like the fact that she's having that conversation with herself. And then
Yeah.
we know that her older self did that. Her older self, fulfilled that promise to like tell her dad that, as uncomfortable of a conversation as that that played out to be, like she did it.
Yeah, I had to write this down because I was trying to understand it myself.
Mhm.
Because I was just like, why isn't Claudia, why is Claudia still doing stuff? It's like, can't she
Yes.
just, can't she just like, it's confusing because, like, theoretically, if everything goes well, their worlds will, this, is it their worlds that will disappear or just the not people will disappear? So I think that's another thing that's unclear, but there's the chronological, what I watched to write this was the chronological Claudia timeline that's on the Dark YouTube
Mhm.
channel. They have all those Claudia chronologies. So yeah, I was watching that closely to see, like, okay, after she hugs herself, what happens next in the chronology. So that's kind of how I wrote this. So it's like,
Right.
it's me actually trying to understand this myself because it's sort of, it's sort of, yeah, it confused me too that Claudia
Yeah,
was
it seems like
still
she should be
doing stuff.
done.
Yeah.
So like sometime after this is when she goes and tells Egon, you're a good guy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then we see her towards the ending of this episode. Yeah, that's it. It is a bit to think about, but I think you proved yourself very well there. Like I said, I don't have anything to add to that because I don't want to confuse that issue any more than it should be.
Yeah. Okay, so then we cut back to World 2. We pick up with Bartosz and Marta
Ah,
riding like the wind on a bicycle towards the wind and power plant. Your
mhm.
favorite part, Steve, the bicycle.
Yes.
They
And
were
she's
trying
not
to,
in the basket. I was wrong about that.
yeah. But I was also wrong that she was standing on the spoke. She's actually sitting with her legs
Yeah,
like just dangling from the bike seat somehow.
I
Um
guess.
They were trying to intercept Alexander before he opened the barrels. Nearby in the forest, Yona walks quickly, then runs towards the meeting point where Magnus and Francisca block their way. Marta and Bartosz arrive. Jonas pulls the golden snitch from his bag and sets the machine for the right time before placing it in his pocket. He then runs toward the quartet, reaching Marta just in the nick of time. He holds on to her, and the two of them disappear in a trail of stars.
Yeah, this is a super cool sequence. I mean, it's one that I've seen a lot of times, and I've seen like a lot of memes of it. It's also kind of unnecessary that he does it this way, but it makes for a really fun action sequence when like you're on the final episode. You got to have a moment like this. So I think it succeeds. I don't think it was necessary, but I do think it succeeds, and I like it.
What do you mean by it's not necessary?
Like he could have just simply walked over there,
Like,
grabbed her,
and
and said,
Magnus
"Hey,
and
I'm
Francisca are just gonna.
just grabbed her hand and said, "Hey, I'm taking her," and and then did the snitch thing. I mean, I don't know. He didn't have to like do it ahead of time and jump over there, but I don't know. Just kind of shows us the mechanism of how it works and how there's like
Mhm.
a slight delay that you have to account for when you use this thing. And I don't know. It was neat. Um, but yeah, it was a show moment for sure.
I'm gonna do a rare thing, and I'm going to, I don't
Hmm.
know, do a slight critique or complaint. I love this
Okay.
scene. It is. I think it jacks up the suspense a little bit. we haven't seen that a lot in the show, so it is kind of fun to have this slow-mo, and then Magnus turns his
Mhm.
head and he sees him, and it's almost like, "No!" And you're just wondering, is he gonna grab her in time? And he does, and it's really cool. But Lewis Hoffman doesn't know how to run.
Oh, I didn't pay attention to that.
When you run, you're supposed to pump your arms so you run faster. Jonas runs with his arms at his sides. Nobody
Okay.
runs that way.
No, well, I don't know. I have seen scouts with some
I
really
mean,
weird running habits.
you're right. People do run this way, but it doesn't it looks really bad. I'm
Yeah,
like,
he
if
could
you're
have.
really
Yeah, there's an action coordinator on set, I'm sure, that could have given him that note.
Yeah, I mean, it's that obviously isn't the production's expertise. They're good at interpersonal relationships and conversations, but it has
Yes.
like nobody told him to not just keep his arms stiffly at his sides as he's running.
I mean, maybe he's got like a tennis elbow or something. I don't know. Give him a break. He's been through
Yeah.
a lot.
This is
Poor
okay,
guy.
it's I've been listening to you and James too long, because you guys every once in a while
Yeah.
will list complaints and go, "Yeah, that way this is to know how people shovel coal or whatever," so I've been listening to you
Right.
guys too much. Okay. So moving on, the two appeared next to the bus stop.
Yes.
They're in World 1 now. They regard each other with suspicion. For Jonas, it's his first time meeting the other Marta. Marta has a visible reaction too. Here she thought Jonas was dead, and here he is alive and well. However, this Jonas doesn't know her. This Marta had her life turned upside down when Jonas crashed into her world, insisting they were connected, had sex with her, then turned cold the next morning. She then had to
Mhm.
watch him die in cold blood. Now she must bear the pain of him not knowing her, and she's back to square one with him.
Yeah, I don't think he did a great job of like explaining himself and like convincing her here. Like at least we didn't get to witness that. Especially with like how important their plan is. Um I just felt like he didn't explain enough and I was just shocked that he was successful. He's got a lot of luck on his side.
Yeah. Well, we've seen Jonas do this before. With when he gets in mission mode, he's very
Right.
much like Grandpa Ulrich. He just
Act before he
goes.
thinks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's just ready and he's just kind of like, catch up, keep up with me now. Here's what we're doing. We're going to do this X, Y, and Z. Just come with me. And then he just takes off. And
Yeah, and I
Marta's
guess he's got
like,
that he's got that unspoken charisma as well that people want to follow him and want to be around him. Like they don't really talk about that, but it's obviously there. Otherwise, like Francisca and Magnus and all them like wouldn't have hung out with him as much as they did, like towards the later part of his life. Um, Something I hadn't really thought about until now. Like Jonas is supposed to be he's a world building figure. Um, so he must have some sort of charisma about him that attracts people. Like Bartosh likes him, Martha likes him unexplicably. Um, I don't know. Am I going off on a bad tangent there?
I don't know if I think. We see the charisma sort of kick him and he becomes Stranger Jonas and then going into Adam. But, Jonas was a quiet soul that was sort of shy and unassuming and a little awkward. I think Marta liked
Right.
him because he was kind of serious and,
That's true.
like a still he's like he was, compared to like Magnus and Bartosh who were always joking around and acting like a bunch of nitwits. Jonas kind of was
Hmm.
like he was like the old soul a little bit. So I guess you
Yeah.
could call it a form of charisma, but it gets at something I want to talk about later, but it's like this a inability sort of to express oneself, uh, emotions healthily. But yeah, he also had
Right.
Michael as his dad. So he didn't have a great model of expressing your feelings
True.
well. And then there's, Hannah, who wasn't the healthiest person. So yeah. But yeah, she kind of like, you can see that she really is, you're alive, and she kind of steps forward. She's so happy to see him, and he just stares at her like, he just like, you look like her,
Yeah.
but yeah, but he actually has, I don't know, remember we had that person write in that, I don't remember who it was, but it was a feedback you got from somebody that said, like, Jonas actually has a lot of emotions. He's just afraid to show them that people
Yeah, I remember
will.
that.
You remember that? So yeah, that was
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, so she demands to know what year it is, getting more angry as the seconds count forward. Jonas is going through his own emotions. He's still somewhat cold. He tells her that today is June 21st, 1986, the day that both of their worlds were created in Tannhaus's world. Tannhaus the clockmaker will open the passage for the first time today, and they have to stop it from happening.
Yep, we should have started talking after you finished reading. We should have let you read that before we had our conversation. So I think we're ready to move on now, right?
Yeah. So then we warp to World 2. Adam holds a gun in his hand. He enters Erit
Mm.
Lux and sets the Adam and Eva paintings on fire. He walks into her time travel portal room, perhaps admiring how well constructed everything looks.
Yeah.
He flips the switch to make the globe stand still, and he will travel to Eva.
Yeah, I think again this is like a symbolic gesture, just like the unknown came and burned down Adam's world. Now here's Adam burning down Eva's world. Um Kind of a little bit of weird timing, but I think it's like the same thing, like a symbolic gesture of like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna leave any trace behind. We're
Hmm.
just gonna get rid of these worlds.
Yeah.
I don't. I think that's what the burning means to me. He doesn't really have to do that, but you know, for us viewers, he does.
Yeah, it's a last little middle finger to Eva a little bit. I don't
Yeah,
know. You burn my paintings, I'm gonna burn yours.
that's right. That makes sense too. Yep.
So back in World 1, Jonas and Marta stop outside the cave. She stops to ask where they are going. Jonas tells her that they are bringing someone back from the dead. In order to do this, they have to get to them before they die. That's not enough to get Marta on board. She wants to know why. Jonas finally stops to look her in the eye. You and I, we're the reason everything happens the way it does, because neither of us can let go of what we want, but we are the mistake, the glitch in the matrix. This isn't entirely true. The worlds themselves are the mistake that Tannhaus made. Yet, I guess in order for Jonas to do this, he has to feel responsible. It's
Hmm.
not just Jonas and Marta who can't let go of what they want, it's all of Winden. Marta can't help but feel a little hurt. Does Jonas want their worlds to not exist, for them to not exist? Jonas nods his head yes and walks toward the caves. In every world and every time, this is where Marta kisses Jonas to try and convince him to choose her, but this time she doesn't. After a moment, Marta finds her resolve and follows him into the darkness.
Right. Yeah. That is the moment, and this is just another signal that things are going to be different this time around. Like she's not trying to talk him out of his resolve. And also, I think this we hear. I think there's a neat thing like in the past like few decades where we have like the anti-hero stories. Well, I guess it's always kind of been around, but like in my lifetime, like Taxi Driver was one of the first ones, and Fight Club and Joker and these anti-hero stories that we kind of cheer for. This kind of reminds me of like an anti-love story in a way,
Mm,
because it's not like about, these two people that find each other and live happily ever after. They find each other and they have these problems because they found each other and they were never meant to be. So they have to destroy their love and everything. So it's very much like an anti-love story in that way, at least in my opinion, at this point in the story.
mhm. Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite moments of the episode for some reason. I ended up because
Mm.
I know it's one of my favorites when I ended up watching something more than once.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the music in this scene, how it kind of played out. The music was really good. And also, it's kind of a little bit, Jonas kind of gives her a little bit of a bone here because he says, we're the reason everything happens the way it does because neither of us can let go of what we want. So he's kind of admitting, like, yes, I want you. It's not that I don't want to be with you. So he kind of, I don't know, I felt like that was
Hmm.
a little kindness at least he was giving her, that he kind of stops to explain himself a little bit instead of just trucking forward. And then Marta she watches him walk into the cave, and we've
Right.
seen this kind of dynamic happen with them before where one of them walks away and the other one's kind of left.
Mm-hmm.
And she watches him go in the cave, and then he notices she's not following him, so he stops, and she kind of sits there for a minute, and she then finds her resolve, and you can kind of see because she takes this like deep breath, and
Right.
then she like resets. She's like, okay, and what exactly was the tipping point? Not exactly sure here, but
Mm-hmm.
he says, we are the mistake, the glitch in the matrix, and somehow Marta then realizes, okay, this is the right thing to do. I'm going to do this. And she makes this brave decision here to sort of do something selfless. And maybe Jonas's words here give her that
Mm-hmm.
strength to follow him, because she wasn't on board before. She was just like, wait a second, you have to explain yourself a little bit. Like, what is your plan?
Yeah, and there's a lot of repeating of like these same phrases a lot. And I guess like that's the payoff for these phrases and some of these things they say to each other, because they can convince the other person in the future, like based on some of these phrases that they keep going back on and keep repeating.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay, so then in World 2, in 2053, Eva regards the burned paintings. She
God
looks
damn it,
down.
Adam.
She then looks down at the St. Christopher pendant in her hand. In walks Adam. Eva has been expecting him. As always, she puts on a brave face to show she isn't shaken by what he does. And I feel like we just saw that in the scene before. So that was, it's cool mirroring here. So Adam holds the gun.
Yes.
Eva pulls the gun to her chest. Adam won't win because his murdering Eva is what convinces Marta to avenge her older self. She will turn against Adam once and for all. But Adam doesn't shoot Eva. Eva gets impatient and uses her hand to try and pull the trigger on herself. This is when Adam reveals he has removed the bullets. Time doesn't intervene. Instead, good old fashioned free will. Adam makes the choice not to shoot Eva. Eva is befuddled and a little afraid. What can this mean? Because Adam always shoots her.
I want to interject here because I want
Hmm.
to like I like what you wrote down there, and just want to emphasize that time doesn't intervene. It's the good old fashioned free will here, because we always talk about how time like just makes things happen, but instead here, Adam pulls the rug on time, um, which is a nice touch. And before we get too far, too, I just wanted to say like just how badass Eva seems, where she's like, they always have their back to the door and they let people
Hmm.
walk in behind them, like, and they don't turn around. It's just, it's a badass move. And Eva doing it here and like, I've been expecting you. It's like, I don't know. I just thought that was a little bit of a badass moment. I liked it.
Yeah. He has to,
And
yeah, she has to be like, "Yeah, you're gonna do your thing, but you're not winning." You know, she has to really give it to him. He has to tell him
and this is
that,
another reason. This is another moment that made me think that it's not a loop, that it's one time, because she's all like, "Oh, you always shoot me here, right?" Because she's like, "What can this mean? Adam always shoots her." I don't know if we're going to get into that in a minute here. I don't think we do. I think this is an appropriate time to say this. Um, she's expecting Adam to be there to kill her. It's not because she remembers this exact moment and she's been living it over and over again. It's because her younger self found her older self dead. So that's how she knows that she was shot and killed at that time, because her younger self like experienced it. And of course that all gets flipped on its head here because Adam changes it all up. But she makes it sound like she has lived this moment and she remembers this moment. That doesn't doesn't hold water with me.
but wouldn't that mean that it happened at least twice? If
What
it
do you mean?
happens an well, if it happened if they remember it happened, if, like, the younger person remembers that it happened because they were younger,
Hmm.
then it would have had to at least happen one I can't even it's too hard to say.
I
It's
see
too
what you're
hard to
saying.
say,
I
but
see what you're saying. It can lead us down a road, and we're on a different path today.
yeah. But I think I don't know, it's just hard to justify your like I'm laughing a little bit because I was like, okay, Steve is gonna use you're like, I'm gonna use this moment to try to prove my theory.
Well,
And it's
that's what we
like,
do. We that's how we try to make these theories and try to find little
yeah,
moments that justify it and find these connections. And so, like,
yeah.
that was one for me. That I guess it doesn't really pan out.
I guess I'm channeling my Eve right here. I was like, yes, you go on with your plan, Steve, but this is what will eventually bite you in the butt.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, okay.
So Adam tells her they will both die and everything that has come with them. Life is a labyrinth. Some wander around inside it until their death in search of a way out. But there is only one path, and it leads ever deeper inside. Only when one reaches the center will one understand. All that we have done will ultimately be forgotten. We are responsible for this never ending deja vu, and we're the ones who have to end it. We are the mistake, you and I. Eva begins to weep. Adam touches her face. For the first time in years, they act kindly towards one another.
Mhm.
Adam makes a vulnerable admission here. Their younger selves had a deep, abiding love for one another, but as they grew and lost hope and became twisted versions of themselves, they stayed connected through hatred. Everything they did was an attempt to thwart the other's plans. Thus, the knot was created. Essentially, their lives have become one big middle finger directed at each other.
Yikes! Yeah. I guess the one thing I wanted to go back on with that was the labyrinth, when Adam is telling her that life is a labyrinth and
Mhm.
the only one path is inside the center. A couple of thoughts about that is, of course, in the story and the play, in the center of the labyrinth, that's where the Minotaur is, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So that's supposed to be like where the evil thing that you have to conquer is. And once you can conquer that, then you can, follow the thread that led you there back out again. So in this case, they talk about how the unknown is kind of like at the center of things, and how he's the center point between the two worlds. And I think at one point they call him the Minotaur.
Yeah,
And
they thought he was the origin.
right, okay. Maybe that's what what I'm getting at is like I was trying to figure out, if this is a labyrinth, is the unknown the center of it, which I guess Adam's trying to say here that like that you are your center, and if you can conquer yourself and like they say, if you want to change the world, change yourself, and the new
Mhm.
you can then inspire the world to change. So I kind of think that's kind of the same thing as what he's saying here, I guess.
Hmm. I guess I see it a little bit differently. I feel like the labyrinth, it could refer to like all this time both of them have been they've been operating with the information in their heads. They came up with their
Hmm.
own story that this was somehow all about them and that the origin was their son. So it is
Hmm.
it's part of the sickness, the toxic nature of their relationship to one another is they actually have made their relationship the center of the
Mm.
labyrinth.
Okay.
And it turns out that actually the center is that we're not the center at all. This is we're like the center. Tannhaus is at the center. And until we had that piece of we couldn't solve the maze until we had all the pieces of information. So we had to, I mean, they weren't the ones that found it. Claudia did. She gave them the information, but they're going to use that information to now get out of the maze. But it makes me think of they say like one way to solve a maze, if you're ever lost in a maze, they just say like put your right hand out and you'll get out eventually because if you put your right hand on the wall and follow it, even if you come to a dead end, you're going to keep going around and you'll get out of it eventually by just
Oh.
putting your hand on the wall and like finding something solid instead of just
Hmm.
finding your own path.
Okay. Yeah, I'll do that next time I'm in a corn maze.
It might take a really long time, but you'll get out
Sure.
eventually.
Sure. That's 100% accuracy. I like that.
Yes.
Okay.